Brother, I have long lashed on your back, peered over your shoulders to see what you have seen and helped me. Young, I could view things with distance, climb out of the fog of now and look back with you on yesterday. We plotted our lives out in a grid, connected the dots of your past and my present, asked you questions about the lines we drew. Shook you like an hourglass in the hopes that some sand would spill out, and when it did, you served up every answer with a double shot of perspective. Your wisdom always went straight to my head, left me feeling dizzy and warm, but I will no longer speak to you in call and response. I have learned how to stand on these 2 feet just fine, so I wanted to thank you. I cannot give you much. These eyes are still stuck straight ahead, lost, thick in the depths of 20, but what I cannot give you in eyes, I will give you in ears. I have no wisdom to lend. But if you need quiet, call me. Meet me at an empty parking lot at midnight. There we can practice meditation to the rhythm of the crickets, the hum of rubber. Brother, when you need peace, don't call me treaty or stalemate. Call me the shores of Cape Cod. I'll sit, patient, steady, waiting as they do for our return. When you need inspiration, don't call me muse, call me recorder. I will play back to you the sand that you have left in me, people that have changed you, places that have bared witness to existence and injection, straight into your memory of the stories you have yet to write, brother. When you need hope, don't call me savior, call me naive or young. I will remind you the simplicity of conviction. Cut away from your limbs those ropes that every day tied you. Remind you how they only pull you from room to room, help you get from coffee to pillow, and that is not enough. Not for you, brother. Hope. Hope is found when we stand, when we reach, peer out of the fog-laden rut of our existence and look on to what could be or should be. Brother, I know that it is hard, that to reach is to stretch, to tire, but if you ever find yourself lying down infested with lethargy, you can call me pesticide. When your muscles give up, call me next of kin, call me bloodline. Your heart will pump me through your veins, call me oxygen. I will grab hold of the grit and love within you and lift it up until it bubbles on the tip of your tongue. If you ever wake and find your lips sewn shut and wrist bound, and no surgeons, so call me steak knife. I will cut you back open, brother. Hope may come from our hearts. We may see it with our eyes, but it is spread with our mouths and with our hands. So brother, reach. Speak. This world deserves to feel the weight of your handprint upon it. If there ever comes a day that in the mirror you do not see someone worth looking up to, do not call me sidekick. Call me Kate. I will latch on your back once again, so that with every gust of wind you know that someone sees you and all the dots that make you up and still calls you hero. Hello, my name is Tom. I'm a performance poet, and today I want to talk to you about the different ways we communicate with one another, and how I view every action we take like a word in a sentence. I started doing performance poetry for an event called Poetry Slam. Now, a Poetry Slam is a competitive poetry event. If this was a slam, I'd have come up, I would have done that same poem, but instead of all you guys being like, yeah, that was all right, there'd be 5 judges in the audience, and they'd give me a score from 0 to 10. Then a bunch of other poets would go up. They'd all do their poems. They'd get scores. And whoever had the most points at the end of the night would win. You win money. Sometimes you win a trophy. Most of the times you win a pat on the back. But because I started doing poetry at this event, I wanted to become very aware of the way that I communicated with the audience. I viewed every second of my performance as a way to either gain or lose points. So because of that, I started to break down every way that I was communicating with you during my performance. Now, obviously, I'm speaking to you. The words that I wrote in my poem are very important, but the way that I say them is equally important. And also, the things that I'm doing with my body while I'm performing is extremely important, the actions that I take. I look at the gestures that I make during a poem as a way of illustrating the words that I'm saying to you. Now, more than that, I feel like I'm communicating with you from the second that I walk out on stage. From the second they call my name, I'm communicating with the audience and the judges, and so I'm very conscious of how I walk out on the stage. I look at it like my first impression. More than that, I picked up this trick from my poetry mentor. His name's Ed Maldonado. Before he does any poem, he adjusts his mic. He adjusts it, he steps back, takes a deep breath, and begins. I adopted this habit, one, because he won a lot of slams, and I thought that might be his secret, but also because I think it conveys an idea of professionalism, that I take my poetry seriously, and hopefully because I do, you will. What I'd like to do for my TED Talk is take that idea of mindful communication through action one step further into our daily lives. My innovation then is a shift in perspective, an argument for a mindfulness in how our actions communicate with others, and an argument to shift the definition of voice to include the actions that we take in our daily life. I'm going to show you a poem. It's one of my favorite poems of all time. It's one of the first poems I ever saw. It's by a poet named Shane Koizan, and the poem is called "This Is My Voice." It's one of the reasons that I write, and in many ways, it's an inspiration for this talk.
This is my voice. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And it's a fine line when you're trying to define the finer points of politics, politics being a Latin word, poly meaning many, ticks meaning blood-sucking butt lumps. But too many live in countries where it's bullets instead of ballots, where gavels fall like mallets when held in the hands of those whose judgments can be bought as easily as children can be taught to covet. And the only ones willing to speak up are forced to live so far beneath the radar that the underground is considered above it. This is for the Ho Chi Minhs and the Michael Collins, the Marquis de Sades and the muted gods. This is my voice. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And this time it's for the sons and daughters who watch mothers and fathers drown in shallow waters while panning for the American dream in a polluted creek called the mainstream. This is for the homeless people sleeping on steam vents, making makeshift tents out of cardboard and old trash, trying to catch 40 winks in between the crash of car wrecks, risking their necks by surviving another day so they can starve, so that famine can carve their body into a corpse before their heart stops beating, so that men in a boardroom meeting can make it harder for them to get welfare, health care. It's no wonder some of them pawn off their own wheelchair. And every time I walk by, I can't help but feel at fault that maybe I didn't search myself hard enough for the Control-Alt-S so I could save the world. Or at least this little girl curled up into a ball. I've spent most of my life throwing compassion back like a fish that's too small. Got to cash in my reality checks. Drop her some spare fantasies. Because I've got 3 separate degrees from different universities, but the most valuable thing I ever learned was to believe people when they say please. This is my voice. There are many like it, but this one is mine, and don't tell me there are no heroes. This is for them, the women and the men. For Helen Keller, who against all odds found a voice. For the choice Veronica Guerin made. For Martin Luther King, who stayed just long enough to share a dream with us. This is for that day on the bus with Sister Rosa Parks. This is for the Joan of Arcs who believe even in the face of sparks becoming flame, the political game that Louis Riel refused to play. This is for the day the Dalai Lama finally goes home. For Dr. Jeffrey Wigand, who alone stared down big tobacco. For Nelson Mandela, who continues to go the extra mile. This is for the trial that finally found a man guilty of shooting Medgar Evers dead. For everything Malcolm X said, remembered by athletes who left the Olympics double-fisted. For Arthur Miller, blacklisted for calling a witch hunt what it was. For Galileo, locked up because he said the earth was round. For the 2 Live Crew who found a sound that got them banned in the USA. And imagine if we could still hear John Lennon play. This is for the someone who stood up today and said no. For Edward R. Murrow, who shut down McCarthy. For Salman Rushdie, Mahatma Gandhi, you, me, this city, this country. We will always have a choice. When you stand up to be counted, tell the world, this is my voice. There are many like it, but this one is mine.
When I was accepted to give this talk, I was extremely excited, and I was entirely overwhelmed. I racked my brain for what an idea worth sharing I had with 100 of my peers. But as I kept working through the talk, I kept coming back to this poem and this idea of voice. Now, what I hear from this poem is my innovation to a T, a shift in the definition of voice to include what we do and who we are. Any expression of our identity, our ideas, our values, that's voice. He's talking about it in terms of activism. That's a noble cause, and if you're interested in it, I'd take it up with Erica, because she already gave a great talk on that. But what I'm most concerned with is how we communicate through our actions in everyday life. From the second that you walked in this room, we started having a conversation. Through everything you did and everything I did. And right now, you're speaking to me with your eyes. Whether you're looking at me, looking at your phones, looking out the window, looking at some pretty girl in the audience, you're speaking to me and to everyone around you. This is not a new idea. This is not my idea. But it's an idea worth sharing. And it's an idea worth taking some time to think about, because when you understand how your actions speak to others, you'll know what to do when words fail you. The best example that I can think of in my life has to do with a very close friend of mine. I'd like to share a poem with you now. And this poem took me 2 years to write. I hope you like it. August 12th, 1992, you gave birth to your third. And this time, all you wanted was a baby girl to call your own, Frankie. She fist fought her way out of the womb and fell directly onto a baseball field while you were trying to paint her face pink. She was playing tackle football in my backyard. Ripped jeans, brother's t-shirt, and mud from makeup. She could always throw that ball farther than me. And the first time we got drunk on your back porch, Frankie told me she had a crush on my girlfriend. I smiled because I did too. And so we began to bond over the thing we longed so greatly to talk about, girls. How soft they were, how much we liked the way they smiled, how we always hoped they were smiling at us, and how we could not for the life of us understand them. So we drank and spoke all night and came to the conclusion that we could not for the life of us understand them. Then she left, went away to college. Months later, she returned home with unsure eyes and trembling fingers, breasts bound tight beneath her t-shirt and hair crew cut. She said, "Call me Frank, not Frankie." And I embraced him then as the man he finally knew himself to be, dear Edna. I can see the first time he tried to make you understand. Sitting in your recliner, black and cracked, comfortable by years of routine, he comes in. Eyes pinned to the ground and feet dragging. He had prepared for this moment all semester, rehearsed the words in his room until they were all he could speak, a poem, trying to put eloquently he was just beginning to understand himself, but it did not matter. For where I opened my arms to the shedding of layers, you put yours out in front to protect from the truth you were not ready for, covered him in lies and guilt trips, tried to make him buckle beneath the weight of words like, "How could you do this to me? Do you understand how this makes me feel?" And when he stood strong in the face of your backwards parenting, you instead spewed confused dogma passed down to you from the hills of West Virginia. You tried to seep into his skin, doubt like a poison, but this is no phase. There is no experiment here. You cannot keep him from his right to feel comfortable in his own skin. I am sorry that you did not get the daughter you asked for, but there is a man fighting for his place in this world, that he needs his mother. All I can do is sit on your back porch and make sure that he is not alone when he reaches for your hand and only finds a bottle, another night of empty glasses and the sweet sting of blurred vision. Edna, don't you ever tire of burning the insides of your child, of distilling revelation into hate, of hiding behind that picket line, 1 part tradition and 3 parts fear for 1 second? Try and see that this is not about Jesus or your God or liberals or conservatives or the generation gap. This is not even about you. This is about your son. So open your arms and love him back. Thank you. When Frank came out to me as transgender, I had no idea what to say. There were so many words, so many feelings, so many thoughts swirling around in my head that I couldn't grab the right words and tell him what I felt. But what I could do was act. And I knew what I had to do was act. And I am so thankful every day that the first thing I did when he told me was open my arms and embrace him. Because those actions that I took in that moment, I knew would define our friendship going forward. I have not learned too much in my 20 years. I am often still stuck straight ahead, taking on things as they come at me. But what I do know is that there will be moments in your life when words fail you. And I pray that in those moments you act and you understand that those actions will speak much more eloquently than any words or any poem ever could. Thank you.